Hello and welcome to the Pod Awakens, a Star Wars fan podcast. My name is Jordan. With me today is Ron. How are you today, Ron?
I'm doing great, man. We get to talk about my favorite Star Wars movie ever. So, just for fun. So I am ecstatic at the moment.
And today we have somebody joining us again from our What If discussion, Tommy Bechtold. How are you today, Tommy?
Hey, I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me back. Ready to talk Star Wars. Always excited to talk Star Wars.
Well, before we get into Star Wars, we got to ask how the motivational guru stuff is going.
Oh, it's going great. No sponsorships yet, which was the point. Obviously, it was a financial pivot, but we'll just keep putting positivity out there. 1 minute to 1 minute and 30-second video at a time until people bend to my will.
Keep plugging away, man. You'll be like Tony Robbins in no time, I'm telling you.
That's what I figured. Just if I yell enough, eventually people have to listen.
That's one way. We're dropping this episode on May 4th to celebrate the Phantom Menace. It's the 25th anniversary. It's back in the theaters. So we're going to be talking all things Phantom Menace and its 25th anniversary. Last year, I dropped a 40th anniversary for Return of the Jedi, and that was a lot of fun. So for listeners, we're going to kind of keep to a lot of those same structures if you were around and listening at that time.
There are dozens of us. Sorry.
I know Ron and I are going to see the movie again on this weekend. Tommy, are you going at all to see this movie in theaters?
I will be having to celebrate privately. I am going to be in Denver.
Oh, no.
So I will,
yeah, they don't have theaters there.
I'm told it's like that. The entire city of Denver is like the town in Footloose, except for
movies. Yeah,
it's movies. So you can't go see movies. The movies kill. No, I will be in Denver. I don't know. You know what? Where there's Wi-Fi, there's a Disney Plus, and where there's a Disney Plus, there's a Phantom Menace. So
yeah.
Just go underneath the Denver airport. You can live the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, that's right. I got to find that portal to hell. Yes.
Oh, God. We are all.
Yes. So I know I'm going to see it. This would be my first time seeing it in theaters.
Really? Oh, yeah. Right. You guys are youngsters. My God.
No, I was wait. Yeah,
I was 8.
No, this is his first time seeing it. Do not.
Ron saw it.
With that. This was my most formative theater experience.
I was child. 7. I was 7, a month away from turning 8 at the time that this movie was in theaters, and I've talked about it funnily enough on the Return of the Jedi 40th anniversary. But growing up, like, I don't know, I had Return of the Jedi on VHS. I didn't really have any of the other ones. I had Return of the Jedi on VHS, and it was the pre-special edition version.
Yes.
That I had.
That's a collector's item for sure.
Yeah, it's probably gone now. I don't know where that is.
George Lucas got his hands on it.
Yes, he came and burnt it.
No one will.
But yeah, so then I kind of like, I don't know, like I was a Star Wars fan, but not like as hardcore as I was like after this movie, which I saw on DVD for the first time. Like I got it on DVD, but at first I actually rented it or borrowed it from the library, I believe. And it was the VHS.
Man, remember those days? Renting tapes from the library? My God.
They still do that. Well, not tapes, but they do the DVDs now. But yeah, so that was like my first experience with the Phantom Menace, and it was, seeing Star Wars in like a high def type thing. I mean, it's still VHS, but like newer effects, newer stuff like that, and it was something that kind of stuck with me for a bit. And then I started, reading the books, and there was like this series called Jedi Apprentice, which was like a young adult series, 18 books. Jude Watson wrote 17 of them. I think David Wolf wrote the first one, never wrote another one again. And it was about Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. And that was like really, I love the prequel era, but I actually love before the Clone Wars. I love the state of the galaxy when we're getting to episode 1 and when we're dealing with, the early machinations of Palpatine's plan. And going before that, and like that book series was like leading up to the Phantom Menace, and it was Obi-Wan being a little younger and Qui-Gon really teaching him the ways, and like that era of the Jedi at their peak was so interesting to me, and why I really have kind of started to love the High Republic as well nowadays is because we're getting that same sort of thing, like the build up to Episode 1, and why I'm really excited for the Acolyte coming out next month. Um, but Tommy, tell me your first experience with the Phantom Menace and how that played out for you. Your first time.
Well, I was a little older. I think I was 16 years old when the Phantom Menace came out. So I went to that movie with no parents, not to brag. But, before, you have to remember in 1999, this is a pre-Twitter, pre-immediate reactionary society where, like, the backlash for this film, and there was plenty of it from older Star Wars fans, didn't roll out until a few days after the movie came out. Like, it wasn't. So I saw it opening night and was like, hell yeah, Star Wars is back. Love that goofy little water frog guy with the possibly, problematic accent. And by the way, those Chinese Trade Federation frogs are great too, for crying out loud. And in my 1999 sensibility, which probably was wrong then, it definitely is wrong now. But what I remember is I loved Darth Maul. I was kind of pissed about the what I thought then was the brevity of our experience with Darth Maul. I loved the pod racing scene. Thought that was Thought that was great. I loved Qui-Gon and Anakin's relationship, or Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan's relationship. And I loved Natalie Portman. So this movie checked all 4 quadrants of the Tom Bechtold movie enjoyment experience. So my initial reaction was very positive. And only after it became cool to kind of bag on it, will I say I was seduced by the dark side of movie criticism and was like, yeah, I'll bag on it too, because all my friends, especially people older than me, my older cousins and whoever, are like, this movie sucks. And so I had like another reintroduction to it later in life when I was just watching it again. I'm like, why were we so mean to this movie? This movie's great. And I was all in. We're going to talk about it later on the merchandise and everything like that, and all the restaurant tie-ins. I was big into getting all the collector's cups and whatnot. So my initial reaction, I'm happy to say, was very positive, and then I slowly became a victim of the discourse, or a participant in the negative discourse. Yes, exactly. Let the hate flow through you. Yes.
Yeah, I would say, like, when I first saw it as a kid, I liked it. It was as I got older that, again, that stuff kind of comes up, and you're like, I can see some of the issues with the movie.
Mhm.
And then I kind of got tired of it, because for a while it was like the only one I had. It was that on DVD and Return of the
yeah.
Jedi on VHS, and then
Right,
eventually
right.
I got the rest. But this was something that, like, I noticed in 2015 for sure, when I was watching it on my Disney College program when I worked there. We had a Star Wars marathon. We first started with Phantom Menace, and I was watching it, and I was like, I think this movie gets better every time I watch it. Like, and to this day, it is my favorite prequel. I know a lot of people will say Revenge of the Sith, but I just think that there's something about this movie and like the state of the galaxy, and it is like the most mirrored to A New Hope, right? People might say Force Awakens, but really, I think it's this one, when you have the way that you have Anakin going and facing off the Trade Federation. It's almost exactly like the Death Star run, right? And you get them picking up this boy from Tatooine. Like, there's a lot of mirroring in this, and the story structure itself, that I think really lends itself to feeling the most like Star Wars. While like Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, while I enjoy them, right, like, they have a very different feel, and I think part of that is because of the Clone Wars, not the show, just the idea of the Clone Wars taking place, because this is all pre-war here. Ron, I guess give me your. I know some about your history with this, but give me your first impressions when you were a kid, like the impact it made on you.
All right. So, well, first of all, the point you just made about the mirroring is one that I agree with very strongly, and I have like a whole take on that for later when we get into sort of the legacy of what the prequels were. I've kind of shared the story briefly on the show before. My first introduction to anything Star Wars at all was being 6 years old, going through the store with my father, seeing Darth Maul on a bag of chips and being like, who the F is that guy? He is like the coolest person I've ever seen in my entire life. And basically changed my life on that day because I made my dad take me to see it. You know, my dad wasn't a big Star Wars guy or anything like that. My siblings weren't anything like that. So, but it was just like I have to see this movie. This guy looks awesome, and it was genuinely the first time in my life, consciously, that I can remember being in awe. Like my viewpoint of the world as a 6 year old or 6 or seven, I believe I was at the time, changed on that day. It blew me away. Like I had been into comics as a as much as a 7 year old could be into comics when you're just basically flipping through for the cool pictures and stuff. I had seen the Batman movies on home video and stuff. So I had been kind of exposed to some nerdy stuff in my life and I had enjoyed it. But that was like the first thing in my life that I ever like grasped onto and was like, yeah, this is my thing. I'm into this. And just like my first ever conscious memory being in a theater is that movie. Just, the sound all around you and all the stuff that we still love about theaters today was like born in me that day. So I don't think it's a stretch for me to say that this movie, as crazy as it sounds, is probably the most influential movie for me personally ever. Literally.
I believe it. I mean, I don't think that to the age that you were, the scope of the movie, what the franchise already meant to the world, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was another cool thing too. Like when I was in school, and kind of mentioning it to everybody, and like everybody was in on it, and it was one of the first things that I can remember, probably besides, I would say, Pokemon, that just everybody was into as a kid, and everyone was talking about it. Like my second grade class, I was one of like 4 Darth Mauls, even though I was clearly the best Darth Maul, quite frankly. I The haters and losers, they would say they're the best when they were wrong.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of Princess Amidalas, just Obi-Wans. Like half of my second grade class was dressed up as Star Wars characters for Halloween. So it was very much a movement, and all of that kind of the negative backlash that Tommy referenced. That wasn't making its way to my classroom or my universe.
No.
You know what I mean?
That existed in a certain miserable subsection of society that it permeated through, but at first it was just like it was really just adults that it didn't hit like a New
Right.
Hope hit them.
AOL
They
chat
wanted
room.
they wanted to feel like they felt when they were 6 years old and saw
yeah.
A New Hope, and instead they felt like, you got to remember how much the technology changed in the filmmaking process and how much George Lucas really forced all these new techniques with computer generated animation and graphics and stuff like that. And for some people, rather than enjoying that or learning about it, they just went, this isn't a practical Jim Henson Creature Shop alien, I'm gonna just reject this movie entirely. And I mean, unfortunately, that's perfectly fine, but it's a tough way to take in art if you're going to reject the premise before you even get started. So,
and it goes to show that Russ Cole was right. Time is a flat circle, because
that's right.
all the people that came up with the prequels, kind of like in our age, did that same exact thing to the sequel trilogy when it came out.
Oh, absolutely.
And
same complaints, literally.
Yeah, and Freddie Prinze put it very, very kind of poignantly, and just like you did, Tommy. They aren't mad that they think they're mad that it's a bad product, quote unquote. What they're really mad about is that the product didn't grow up with them, and that they didn't. It's not exactly the way they remember it when they were 7, and that magic that they felt, like I just referenced when I was in the theater for the Phantom Menace. Some people just can't accept that that's it's a feeling you have, and it's a feeling that starts you on your journey of whatever it is you love, whether it's Star Wars or Marvel or anything that ends up making a big impact on you. That initial feeling, even as much as you can love it, for years and years and years, it'll never match that initial feeling when it first hooked you. No matter how hard you try, no matter how good the product is, it's never going to hit the same. And when people realize that, I think we'll get a lot more hate on Star Wars.
Good.
Well, it's. I find that all fascinating because it's true, right? Like when you talk about it not growing up with you, right? Like there is. George has made a very clear point that this was always for children, right? The originals, the prequels were always for children. The shows, right? Like Clone Wars. One thing I find now with especially like internet now, I don't know if it's just because I'm getting more of these things, but like, or if it's just the edginess now that people always want, but where people will say like, oh, you know what we really need? A rated R Star Wars movie. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What do we need a rated R Star Wars movie for? Go watch Rebel Moon instead, or don't. If
like everybody else.
I haven't seen it.
Right.
Yeah, like everybody else.
Join in, yeah.
So that is like the like this stuff always rubs me the wrong way when there will be like I don't know, just surfing on Reddit or Twitter, and they're like, if you could insert the first F-bomb into Star Wars, where would you do it? I'm like, do we need that?
No.
Do we really need that? Like I know that
Although it would have to be Han Solo if it was.
Gilroy wanted to add that into Andor, and Lucasfilm pushed back. I'm glad they did. Some people are like, no, that would have landed. I'm like, no, we don't need that. Like, one, it doesn't even have the same meaning in Star Wars, right? It's not even the same thing. But it seems like that's what a lot of people are wanting. They'll be like, where's my real gritty Star Wars? And part of that comes from, I think, a movement that happened in comic book stuff where we started getting here's gritty this, gritty that. And they were like, well, why isn't Star Wars doing this, right? Like, we're getting Logan, we're getting Dark Knight, we're getting these movies, Joker now, like R-rated films that are deep, dark. Like, where's my Star Wars like that? And like you said, that's probably what the adults wanted when they sit back down for episode 1. They're like, give me that. But George gives you that in a different way. He gives it to you with the political aspects in Star Wars instead. The political aspects go over my head as a 7-year-old watching this movie on VHS. But now it's like, oh, I'm actually very interested by that. And it's why I like Andor and stuff, is because of a lot of the political stuff that happens, the Senate, all that kind of stuff. But this one really starts you off with, hey, the Chancellor is dispatching 2 Jedi Knights, and there's a trade dispute. They're blockading Naboo, and you're having to try to figure out, okay, as a kid, you're like, whatever, show me lightsabers. George does that, right? But as an adult now, when I watch it, I find just the way that Palpatine set everything up is like, that's the deep stuff that George is giving you for the adults, and the deeper lore, the deeper story. And it doesn't always have to be mature themes, F-bombs, blood to be mature. And this is where I think the most mature aspect of Star Wars comes in, and that's the politics.
I guess I'll just kind of get to the take that I was mentioning before now, because it kind of fits. Because it's funny that they act like that there isn't that sort of gritty, serious undertone to it. Because for me, the entire prequel trilogy, very much it mirrors the original trilogy in certain ways, but it's also the sort of antithesis, like negative zone version of it. Whereas the original trilogy is very much built on the hope, no pun intended, and like just you always know throughout those movies, even when things look kind of bleak in Empire, you're like, this thing is going to end with Luke saving the day and taking down Vader and Palpatine, and really the whole story was pushed forward because of that hope. Whereas the prequel movies were pushed forward by the grief and the hatred. You think about Anakin having to leave his mother And then everything that happens with her, obviously, with the Tusken Raiders, and then Anakin just slicing and dicing all of them. You think of the grief and the anger of a forbidden love that Anakin and Padme had to spend 3 movies hiding, or 2 movies basically, hiding from the world and never being able to just be happy like they wanted to. The grief of Obi-Wan and losing his master and having to learn how to be a master on his own, totally on the fly, and making a lot of missteps along the way because he didn't have his master there to kind of help keep him on the straight and narrow. So it's one of those things. And it climaxes in the ultimate moment of grief when the Jedi are taken down and Anakin turns to the dark side. So it's probably the most adult Star Wars. I mean, save for Andor, which didn't come obviously till years later. But for me, for my money, it's the most adult Star Wars out there. I could be wrong, but there's my soapbox moment for the day.
It's not as much on the hero's journey the way that the original trilogy is, right?
Yeah.
Like you still get the hero's journey through more like an Anakin, but like the fall of the hero, not so much the rise of the hero. But yeah, I can see what you mean by like this is deeper themes than maybe some of those like fairy tale-esque original trilogy of here's a boy that's fighting against the Empire, you know, that type of fairy tale. Okay, so I guess let's kind of dive into our favorite moments of the movie here. I'll start with you, Tommy. Your favorite moment in Phantom Menace could be a couple if you have them off the top of your head here.
Sure. I mean, the final battle, Maul v. Qui-Gon v. Obi-Wan, is, you know, to me, the music, Duel of the Fates.
Yeah.
Which I was on another podcast with Chase Smith, a friend of mine, and I brought up that video was on MTV's Total Request Live, which in 1999 was it's hard to contextualize in 2024 words, but like
it's like TikTok's big.
A
right?
sound, yes, it is. It's like basically going viral on TikTok. It's like this song was so popular as a score from a movie that it cracked into where like Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears and Eminem and NSYNC, it cracked into their territory briefly. Like it got played on the radio. It was huge, and that score just set the tone for this incredible lightsaber battle that resulted in the death of 2 huge characters that you're thinking, you know, I didn't go into Phantom Menace thinking that Liam Neeson was only going to do 1 movie. You know, I was like, oh great, he'll probably be, you know, in all 3 of these movies, and then, you know, lo and behold, he's gone suddenly. And then just as suddenly, moments later, Darth Maul is falling in 2 pieces down a exhaust shaft or whatever, and it's like
you're like, no way he can come back from that.
Yeah, nobody survives that, and then somehow,
Maul returned. Yeah,
somehow Maul returned. Anyway, that's for me. I'm sorry to steal the the easy layup, but for me, it's just, if you're gonna say what my favorite scene, I mean, it's got to be. I think most people are gonna say that's their favorite scene. So I'll take the easy one off the board.
Really quick too, just while we're all kind of on the topic of the mirroring stuff, Qui-Gon very much the mirror of Obi-Wan in New Hope.
Yeah.
How he passes away, and sort of Luke kind of goes off the reins a little bit and gets a little more unhinged, and we obviously see that in Empire. Very much kind of the same thing with Obi-Wan and the missteps he makes in leading Anakin, which obviously leads to what it leads to.
True.
All right, Jordan, give us some of yours.
Yeah, so obviously the battle, right? Like you mentioned the music video. That was one of my most watched special features on the DVD. Pop that video in. That and like the behind the scenes featurette that they did, the making of episode 1 was one of my most watched behind the scenes. I bought it digitally just to be able to rewatch that again recently. My favorite moments in this movie, it's going to sound silly, probably, is the opening. I can quote the opening beginning of this movie line by line, and I love the delivery of this stuff. Like I've mentioned this before, but even the moment when like the Trade Federation fires on the ship that Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon arrived on, and the woman, like the pilot's trying to get the shields up, and they're just like shields, and just like the high pitched ways they say shields, and then just like boom, blown up. Like one of my favorite parts. Don't know why, right?
7-year-old Jordan's like,
Obi-Wan,
we will never see graphics this good ever.
Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon talking, and you were right, Master. The negotiations were short. Like all that stuff on the
Yes.
Trade Federation's part, like the random force speed that they use to like just run away from the droidekas, like all of that stuff is just one of my favorite parts. And sometimes I'll put it on and I'll just watch that beginning part and then eventually fall asleep or something, but like it's worth it for that opening part. The part for me where it really lulls more is the Tatooine stuff. I'm not as big on the pod race as people were even back in the day. I would sometimes skip right to the Duel of the Fates as a kid. I'm like, all right, I've seen this movie so many times, I'm skipping to the battle, right? Same thing with Attack of the Clones. I'd skip the Geonosis. I'm like, we're here now. We're skipping all the other stuff. But yeah, those are two. Like the whole opening, like 10 minutes before they land on Naboo, is something that I really like. Also, Co Bibble saying like his line of communication. We've lost all whatever he says about like transmitting, and he's like, we've lost all communication. I don't know, like the way he says that was really great. I saw him in a random episode of Poirot, the Agatha Christie show from BBC over.
All right.
He showed up and I was like, oh my God, it's Co Bibble. What are we doing here? But yeah.
You only mentioned this so you could shoehorn Co Bibble into this show.
I love Co Bibble.
You love Co Bibble.
I do. He had an action figure. I didn't have it, but that was when they were pumping out action figures of everybody.
Good God. Yes.
But yeah, so those are some of my favorite parts. Ron, now.
Yes. So in outside of the ones that you guys took, which were both also right at the top of my list, I'm going to steal the pod racing scene, which I know might be controversial. I'm glad that Tommy said he enjoyed it at the beginning of this because most people didn't. I loved that. Like, and again, maybe it's just one of those things where because it hit me so positively as a kid that even today I look at it and I'm like, this is awesome. How did people not like this? I can understand, people saying maybe it wasn't super important to the plot to spend as much time on it as they did. It felt like they were racing for an awful long time, but the announcer's voice and everything, it was just like
Greg Proops.
Yeah.
From Whose Line Is Anyway?
Whose Line, right? Yeah, the guy with the glasses. Yeah. But yeah, like I loved the pod racing scene, dude. Just 7-year-old me couldn't get enough of it. But
you know why it was important? It was important so that we could get Star Wars Pod Racing, the video
game, right? Dude,
that was why.
Synergy.
Oh my God. I cannot emphasize how much time I spent as a kid playing that game, dude. So good. It was even better than the actual Phantom Menace game that they made.
Yes, I agree.
Oh, no. The PS1 Phantom Menace game was amazing.
Oh, I'm not poo-pooing it at all. It was one of my favorite games.
I remember getting stuck in that game and not knowing what to do.
Very tough. Actually, funny story. It was on PS Plus and it might still be. I tried playing it again like 4 months ago. Impossible. You just can't. With everything we've seen since, it's just totally impossible. I was so hoping that I'd be able to go down that nostalgia rabbit hole again, but it just I got to one door and I was like, all right, what are we doing here? I don't know how to
what do we do to open this door?
What do we do to open this door? And then I got frustrated and put on Resident Evil 4. But so besides from the pod racing, I was actually a big fan, and it was a short scene, but the whole thing with Maul sending his probe droid and finding Anakin and Qui-Gon, and then they had that really brief little fight right when they're about to get on the ship in Tatooine, and he like flips off the bike and everything, and just the colors, like it was obviously a very desolate kind of sandy scene, and just the black robe and the sabers and the red and the green clashing off each other. That was like the first moment in the movie that I can remember just being like, whoa, like just totally in awe. And it was just because it was the first moment we really got to see Maul like kind of, mess around and do his thing. And as I mentioned to you guys, he was the reason I was in the theater. So I was basically
it's before Sorry, I was going to say it's
Oh, you're good.
before the double blade too. You know, he
Yes.
only has the one ignited. But now that you're saying that, it makes me wonder if that's why they gave Qui-Gon the green. Because the whole reason they gave Luke green in
Yes.
Return of the Jedi
Return
was
of the
because of the
Jedi.
blue
Yeah.
sky, and it was hard to show that. So, like, because Qui-Gon had this one battle scene outside, I wonder if that's why they're like, oh, we got to give him green.
And it would explain why Obi-Wan didn't get involved either.
Yeah,
yeah. They could be like, oh, he had to drive the ship, but like he couldn't have thrown that thing on autopilot hover really quick and
right.
his master. So yeah, that's actually a good point, Jordan. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, I'm sure by 99 it was better effects where they could have made the blue stand out more or something. But yeah, it just made me think because I was like, oh yeah, he is the only one that uses it, and it is Tatooine, like Luke was on with the sail barge and stuff. So, yeah, interesting picks there. All right, I guess let's get into
some merch.
Maybe just the legacy. I was gonna say like let's the legacy, right? We kind of talked about some of the bad publicity and stuff. This did create a whole movement, I would say, right? Like there was even a movie. It's like People versus George Lucas, right? And they were the ones that are like, he messed up my childhood and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Even hearing you say it is just so ridiculous, and it's true.
It messed up my childhood.
No, the childhood already happened. All right, like that's done. You're old. All right, this is over. But it did leave a little bit of a stain, right? Like, so much so that when Disney took over, they were like, "Oh, we're stopping everything prequels." Like there was like this mandate of we can't acknowledge the prequels. We're canceling Clone Wars. We're making Rebels. We're not touching any prequel eras for a while. Then there's people just kind of generally thinking, oh yeah, making the jokes. There's only 3 good Star Wars movies, right? Like all of this stuff was really building up to it that it actually put the pressure on Episode 7 even more, right? Like because people would be like, all right, are you guys going to stick the landing? Is this going to be better than the prequels? That was the questions building up to it. But it started really from this because most people's complaints were Jar Jar. But not just Jar Jar, the effects, right? The CG, the over-reliance on CG, even though they had models.
And when you say Jar Jar, are you referring to sort of the cultural appropriation aspect or just the fact that people thought it was corny, right?
No, I don't think people were that worried about that at the time. I think they just thought he was silly.
Goofy.
And it's frustrating to have a character brought in that is like, basically billed as like a new lead or one of the few like important characters in the movie who only messes up, who does not ever
like comic
get
relief
it together. It's like comic relief is funny, but usually the comic relief has to eventually, in improv, there's a straight man and absurd is an improv is a concept. The absurd character occasionally has to take the role of the straight man in order to then get more laughs as an absurd character again, and Jar Jar never lets off the gas. He is messing up from moment
one. My tongue
is
numb.
Yeah, exactly. He literally, everything he does that is good is the result of him like slipping and falling and accidentally hitting a lever.
Dude, even when he takes down the tank at the end of the movie, it's an
accident.
And then he gets captured 5 seconds later. It's like, okay.
But I think, Jordan, to go into what you're saying about like what Disney failed to understand, and what I think the critical world at large failed to understand, is the people who loved those prequels were just becoming
spenders,
money paying adults around 2014, 2015, and they were ready to rock, and they love the prequels, and they don't have all that cynicism, and the prequels didn't ruin their childhood. It made their childhood better.
It was their childhood.
It was their childhood, and those movies felt very authentic to them. They didn't feel like they weren't Star Wars. They were Star Wars, and the older movies were also good Star Wars. So there was a wave of positive prequel feelings that came in that I think results in, new episodes of Clone Wars and shows like The Bad Batch and what have you. But it's like, I think that fortunately Dave Filoni understood that and, kind of pushed for that to continue. But yeah, I mean, I think that really we kind of owe that generation of Star Wars fans for bringing back some of our favorite characters and
The
really,
return of Clone Wars is
yes,
because they realized these people have money and they keep asking about this
right,
show. We need a
right,
show for our streaming service. Let's bring back the Clone Wars, right?
right.
Like, yeah, like you said, they've become the money spenders by the time that they were. And thankfully, Lucasfilm did step in a few times. I know that, I think JJ joked about maybe putting like a Gungan skeleton in Jakku, right? Being Jar Jar. Then there was jokes about, or like when he blows up Hosnian Prime, it was supposed to be Coruscant. Is what it was, and Lucasfilm had to step in because they're like, "Whoa, we still actually have plans for Coruscant."
Right.
Like it was like this thing of we're gonna blow up some of that stuff that maybe JJ and like Kasdan and other people were like, we're not. We want to get back to the old school vibe of Star Wars, and we're gonna get rid of some of this stuff that we didn't like so much in the prequels. Very glad that they stepped in because I did not want to see Coruscant demolished at all. But yeah, so there was like this overhanging legacy, right? That was there, but now it's kind of flipped the other way, right? Just like it always will. And then at some point, the sequel kids are going to grow up and they're going to be like, the Rey movie sucked. I'm sorry, it did, right? They're going to go off on whatever. Right. Dawn of the Jedi, more like Cry of the Jedi. I hate this, right? Like, that's what they're going to be saying.
Right.
But right now, it's like the prequel kids are the ones telling the tale, right? And now they're the ones that are like, oh, even the prequels are better than the sequels. And even have some of the original trilogy fans come around to that. Or you'll still have the people be like, there's only 3 good Star Wars movies.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know plenty of those people. And it's, it's like much like anything where I'm like, it's better to just not engage. Just let them rock. Just let them rock with that. And then be like, all right, man, well, that's fine. Because in the end, it's like, I don't really know how much I want to fight over something that isn't real. Like it's a lot of fun and I love it and I want to enjoy it. So it's better to, if someone wants to go ahead and believe that the original trilogy is the only good Star Wars and that's something that they can just, hang their hat on, good for them. That's totally fine. I don't have a problem with it. I don't agree with you, but right. I'm gonna let that go without any pushback anymore because it is like I think kind of what we're all saying over and over again. It's like it's just the era that you experience Star Wars in is always like for the first time is probably always going to be your favorite era, and like I think otherwise it's like anything, like all the renaissance of the 90s X-Men animation with X-Men 97 is so great for me because those were the cartoons I watched when I was a kid. I love it. I'm always going to prefer that to like the Avengers series that came out in 2010, like that series is great. It has a lot of cool things. If you don't read comic books and you want to like understand, a wide breadth of comic book villains and heroes, watch the Avengers animated series. There's 7 seasons of it. And there's, basically you meet pretty much every major player in Marvel. So anyway, blah, 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 tangent. But yeah, I just think, I think fandom in general with Star Wars is like, it's kind of a live and let live world for me now.
Yeah.
It's so hard to try and convince anyone that space opera is you're right or wrong about. So
I've stopped engaging as well. There is this, so my wife's cousin is dating this guy, right? That is very much like, I don't know where he falls on some of this stuff, but very much like Obi-Wan the show, he did not like. Said it sucked, right? Didn't like a lot of the sequels, that kind of stuff. Well, there was one time where we were at dinner at my like in-laws, and he says something like that, and I did not engage. I just kind of left the room or whatever, and my wife is like, Jordan, get in here. He says he doesn't like this stuff. Tell him how much you like this stuff. And I was like, what are we doing?
No,
what are we doing?
Don't make me do this.
So then I had to sit there and defend it, right? And I'm like, all right, I'm getting roped into it now. Because then he's like, oh, you like that stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I do, right? And we're like going back and forth.
All of a sudden, you're like, you're not even, you don't even want to be fired up about it, but you feel like your wife threw you in. You're like, you better believe I like it.
It was like that Wicked Witch meme, like the video. We're going back like that, and I'm like,
Oh,
oh my
Yeah.
god.
what a great meme. Oh my god.
So
Great video.
I try not to engage anymore
Sure.
because, like you said, you're not going to change somebody's mind
No.
most of the time. It's whatever they grew up with. It's whatever they settle on at a certain point of age.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they're going to enjoy. So,
Yep.
we can debate it on podcasts, but like,
Yeah.
when you're out in public or like sometimes you're just like, not right now, or not right now.
I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. A lot of my appreciation for the prequels has been from doing podcasts with people that are 8 to 10 years younger than me and who really experienced Star Wars as a younger
Right,
kid. And
right.
I'm like, oh yeah, I totally get why that would be so incredible
Cool,
for
yeah.
you to see, and why at 16 I maybe was a little more cynical about it. Not that 16 is like a wizened old age where you're like,
It feels like it at 16 though.
Well, yeah,
doesn't
at
it?
16 you think you know everything. 16 is a lot of harsh absolutes that are. Then you turn 25 and you're like, wow, I know nothing. But like,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, honestly, like working at the various channels that I've worked at, half of the reason that I've can like learn to appreciate something that I used to kind of be like, either I'm never really that negative about anything because I worked in the film and TV business for so long. I know how many people work on this shit. So I'm like, dogging something, I really gotta hate it to dog it, because it's like, I don't really want to, for the 200 people behind the camera, I don't want to sit here and like rag on something, but I can be indifferent to something or dismissive, and then hear other people talk about it, and it makes me like, oh, I gotta go back and re-examine that. 90% of the time I go back and re-examine it, and I'm like, oh my god, yes, I totally see that. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm more evolved than most kids. No, I'm kidding, but I also some people can.
Yeah, I think we're also at a point today, which is really weird, where it's like, it's almost like sort of a grift for people to do the I hate Star Wars.
Oh, there's people that I love that are breaking my heart with how much they've turned into, like, they're old friends of mine from early Comic-Con days that have turned into like edgelords online about like Disney woke, MCU, Star Wars is the second you make Star Wars for oh my god, or the second you make Star Wars for girls, you ruined it. And it's like, okay, I don't even know what that means. I have no idea what that even means. I don't think you even know what that means, but you know that if you put that in a thumbnail and put that as the caption, you're going to get 250,000, morons that are going to click on it and go like, right on, brother, hell yeah. So
no, exactly.
Anyway, I digress.
It's something that's very disheartening, but it's just
and I don't even believe that they believe it.
It's monetizing, right? It's just monetizing the hate. That's what it is, right? It is like
that's what Palpatine would want to do.
Exactly,
Palpatine ass move.
You Palpatine ass bitches, come on.
Make them think you hate Star Wars. Feel the cash flow through you.
Like and subscribe.
We'll lighten it up now and kind of finish with our favorite memorabilia.
Oh my god, guys! I'm going to send you. I'm going to DM you a video to accompany all of your promotion for this episode, because I have the most. Well, I gave it to my friend Dylan when I moved from LA to New York. The most incredible Phantom Menace piece of merchandise, and that is the dancing Jar Jar. Giant. It's like 18 inches
like
tall.
A dancing Santa thing.
Yes, and it's motion detected. and he dances to the Cantina song from.
That's what I was thinking. That was playing in my head.
And then
he loves the jizz music.
He loves jizz music, and then it devolves into just percussion, and he's doing like Elvis style. I'm describing. I have a video of it, of my specific one. So I got this. A friend of mine asked me to. He had like 15 totes, those plastic totes you get at Target or Walmart to store stuff in.
Yes.
Full of Phantom Menace merchandise that was in box, mint in box. And he was like, "Hey, I know you know how to do eBay stuff. I don't really even care what this sells for. I just don't want it in my house anymore. Sell this on eBay and we'll split whatever you get 50-50. And I was like, oh, sure, no problem. So I sold a bunch, but there was other stuff that I was like, I can't part with this. So I had to rescue that Jar Jar, and it had battery corrosion. So I had to go in with like the Q-tip and like clean out all the battery acid. But it works like a charm now, and it brings seconds of joy to anyone who watches it, and then immediate annoyance. But that thing is incredible. I'll send you the video because it will live up to the hype. But between that, but I remember when I was 16, I was definitely still at toy. I mean, I've never stopped buying movie related toys. Like I will, I'm very good about giving them away to younger people, nieces and nephews, but like I will for a brief time own something from every major Star Wars movie. And
if you find a good deal, do you tell the cashier like this is a steal?
Oh yeah. I look at them and I go, you have no idea what I have here. You guys are giving away gold bricks for the price of wooden planks, you fools. And then this is how I win. But I just remember I think they were Pizza Hut, the cups that had the figurine tops.
Yes.
Yes. My friend Dylan, who I gave my Jar Jar figure to, gifted me a Watto one of those, but I had the mall one, I think, from back in the day. I had the original recipe one. So I love that. That's distinctly in my head. There also was a really cool Qui-Gon and that giant fish figure. Weirdly, it was like one of the larger sets, and you could get like a giant fish. It wasn't the same, like very much a 90s toy thing. The fish was a different color than it was in the movie. It was just it was like fluorescent pink, like the way they used to make Han Solo's blaster neon orange because they didn't want to make a realistic looking gun.
Right.
So they were like, "Oh, you can buy the blaster, but it's neon orange." So anyway,
they didn't want people to think it's a real fish. So
exactly. Well, the only way to stop a bad guy with a fish is a good guy with a fish. I always
there's always a bigger fish too. So you gotta.
But those were my favorites. I'm interested to hear from you guys what your favorites were.
Ron, I'll put this up here for you.
Dope. Yeah, because there's two very right over Tommy's face. There's two very specific...
It'll be edited differently.
So this is the mall action figure that I most remember. I remember it because I had 3 of them throughout a very short period.
3?
3 of them. I was very much losing shit left and right kind of kid. And that was like one of the only toys in my life that I like had to re-up on because it just, there could not exist a world where 7-year-old me did not have a Darth Maul action figure.
I like that you had 3 because you lost them, whereas like most people who had 3 were like 1 to play with, 1 to look at, and one to sit in darkness in a closet. You're like, I had 3 because I kept chucking them against trees. And breaking them.
Legit. Or like the second one that I lost, I didn't buy 3 at once. Obviously, I didn't. I didn't buy anything because I was 7. Right. But the third one that I got was because all that I lost was the lightsaber of the second one. But I was like, you can't have a Darth Maul figure without a lightsaber. What the hell? You know? So that one was a layup.
If figures ever come back, I think the 3 of us need to go on a business called Saber Savers, where we will send out replacement lightsabers to figures.
Little minis,
There's a guy that does this. Not so much that, but like if they're missing like the Star Wars, like if they had a cape. Like sometimes there's like this guy that'll be able to find the cape or like recreate it.
I like. Well, I guess with 3D printers, you could pretty much do.
True.
If you get the printout, but
sounds like we have to
unalive. So I'm sure they do with sabers and stuff too.
It looks like we need to have a meeting with some guy in Duluth to take him out. I hear you're the man who can make capes. Is that true? Yes.
Not
so sorry.
Pew pew pew.
Why is your blaster orange? I don't know. It's just a toy.
It's a Nerf gun. Sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I couldn't get it through customs. They would think it was real.
Can you call my parents? I need them to Venmo me plane ticket money. This was such a stupid mistake. Right.
So, Ron, what I'll say is I had the same one.
Nice.
It's probably gone now, but I had the same one. And I remember when I was in my peak Star Wars era, we were at like my parents would always take me to this thrift store that was near my grandfather's. And it'd be like, we'd go to take my grandfather out of the house or whatever look at what they got. And I remember like this backing of the episode 1 stuff.
Mhm.
There was so many of these toys at the thrift store, like peak Star Wars, and they were on sale. It was like after Phantom Menace, but before Attack of the Clones.
Mhm.
And that's where I got my Darth Maul. And yeah, they just had like tons of them, and that's really stood out to me in my memory.
Mhm.
But
Nice.
I'll throw up the second one that you put up here
Yeah,
too.
so there was
Ooh, yes.
oh, this was sweet because it had the lightsaber hilt, and you put it around the waist of Obi-Wan, as you can see there. And there was a little button in the back that kind of like connected to it.
Qui-Gon, you're not a real fan.
My
sorry.
bad. He's right in front of my face too. I can't believe I did that.
You,
So that
you
figure-
fraud.
So anyway, the Princess Leia figure that I was referring to, you can no,
Oh.
but yeah, so you put it around his waist, and you hit the button on the lightsaber, and it like swiveled his upper torso, so you could like it was
Yeah.
essentially kind of like a Rock'em Sock'em Robots sort of deal. You can get all the figures, and like that was a really weird hand movement. Sorry for that. But you could essentially like make the characters fight each other, like just sort of thing. So that was another one that I was big on. And of course, I feel like every single one of us had the telescopic plastic lightsabers. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still
that one.
do.
Yeah. 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 They've kind of upgraded these days. We've got, we're a little more advanced.
Oh, snap.
Yeah. I don't want to trigger people. It's a Ray lightsaber. But
what an elegant weapon.
oh, it's beautiful. I got a few over there.
We're more civilized age.
Yeah.
we don't need-
We'll do a saber fashion show one day on here.
Yeah,
But-
guys, let's do another episode where we reveal our sabers to the audience.
Gotta be careful with that.
I was gonna say we get two very different kinds of audiences for that.
Our lightsaber unsheathing episode. Okay, so mine
Good
are
conversation, not enough boobs. Sorry, continue.
mine are like this one isn't from the Phantom Menace era. It's from right after Revenge of the Sith, but I have all 6 of these, and it is the Locked
nice.
from Burger King.
The Burger King.
Yeah.
Wow, memory unlocked. Holy
I
crap.
just found these again when I was going through stuff in my basement too, and they're all in good
Damn,
shape.
Burger
but
King really brought it with the
They
cups.
did.
Hell yeah.
Shrek, did you have the Shrek cups ever?
No, I didn't have Shrek, but like
Sounds
made
familiar.
of real glass. Burger King was like you could.
Burger King
break
used to
this
have
and
the
neck.
gold Pokemon card too.
That was
Yeah.
though that was way
I had to
back.
throw mine away. Mine had like mold on it from a leak in my basement. I had to get rid of it.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, they came in
but
the Pokeballs too. Those were sick.
Yes, the watches here. I kept them all in their
So
containers. They're
Jordan,
open.
you have all of these still?
I have all 6 of them still. Yeah.
That
Oh
is
my
awesome,
God.
dude.
And those
Phantom
are
Menace.
those are Rolexes, right?
Yeah, and they're reversible too. Like the Darth Maul is on the other side of the Phantom Menace one. So
Oh
it's got
my
like
God.
Obi-Wan, and then Darth Maul's on the other side.
That is awesome.
They put these in a weird order. Why do
Yeah.
you have Return of the Jedi second? Anyway,
Also, shout out Christopher Lee for making the cut on iconic Star Wars characters.
Yeah.
They're like
Yeah, he's
not
on
even Jango Fett, which spawned a generation of toxic.
No, yeah, that's
fanboys with
true.
the son of Boba.
true. And then my second one is Phantom Menace related. This is something I got as my from my parents. They loved giving me these race car like model race cars that were this, and I got this one episode.
Ooh, the
1.
diecast.
Nice.
Yes, they were like what, a 1/24 scale, so they were kind of like bigger
Yeah.
than the like Hot Wheels. But
If I'm not mistaken, 24 is the Rainbow Warrior Jeff Gordon himself.
it is, yeah. He
Oh
drove
my
this
God.
Pepsi car for episode 1, and I have this, and it makes me happy.
Yes.
The box is very great too. Like the box of it, like it has like that
Oh,
cover
it says
thing.
Jeff Gordon on it. I'm an idiot.
Oh yeah, he's got a
Oh, I
signature.
didn't-
And then there's like and then it's like a slip cover. This blue thing is like a slip cover, and then they have like something underneath of it that with
Oh,
the
no.
box, and you open it up, and yeah, you get the Jeff Gordon car. So those are like my 2 favorite collectibles when it comes to the Phantom Menace.
That's a nice piece. That's a good
Hell
piece.
yeah,
of
thank you.
memorabilia. That's a really nice piece.
Oh, another memory unlocked before we wrap up here. The Anakin pod racer toy was really awesome too.
Yes.
It came in like a few different pieces, and you like built it and stuff.
Mhm.
That thing was awesome as well.
Absolutely.
Interesting. I don't know if I know that toy.
I'll send you the picture.
Oh yeah, you know what
now.
I just found too?
Yeah.
I just found this too. This is the other side of the Phantom Menace one. So here's the
Ooh.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
Now that I like. Now that's nice.
I was
That's
always a fan of the other side though, because Obi-Wan is my favorite character, and if I were to close my eyes and you say Obi-Wan Kenobi, I picture Ewan McGregor from Phantom Menace with the ponytail and the braid.
Yeah.
That's who I picture when I see Obi-Wan. So
Yep.
Same.
I agree.
Same.
That guy was always on island time with those braids, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, he was.
yes, he I don't know, he's just like the perfect I do not like his Attack of the Clones look as much.
My
when
mom
we're
just
talking
walked in. I'm just waving at her. Sorry.
Mama
Hi,
Bechtold.
Mom. How are you? Quiet. We're recording. We're talking about Star Wars, Mom. Please.
Get out of here, Mom. We're talking about Star Wars.
Yeah, come on. It's guy stuff. This isn't for you.
These guys being dudes.
That's right. All right. She's complying, guys. Don't worry.
All right. So what do you think?
Well,
Drew?
I think I think we're wrapping it up here.
All right.
But yeah, so happy 25th anniversary to
Happy
the Phantom
anniversary,
Menace.
Star Wars.
I'm really
Pretty
shocked
neat.
they killed off. Really shocked they killed off Darth Maul. I really thought they could have kept him around for Attack of the Clones and made him more of the trilogy bad guy like Darth Vader.
Mhm.
But I guess it gave us something great with Clone Wars, him returning in the Clone Wars.
I was just going to say, in hindsight, I would not change it because Rebels and Clone Wars, everything we got from all in there was legendary, and we wouldn't have been able to do 25% of it throughout the course of live action movies.
Absolutely. Agreed.
All right, so Tommy, if you want to tell people where they can follow you and all
Sure.
of your hard work.
You can follow me at Tommy Bechtold on all platforms. You can follow my podcast, Guardians of the Galaxy, at Got Pals. And that's it. That's where you find me.
Great. And you can find this podcast at Podawakens. I don't know why I'm telling you that, because if you're watching it, you probably know. But if you want to send us any sort of feedback, at Podawakens on all of our social media or Gmail, podawakens@gmail.com. You can send us long form emails, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and like and subscribe to us here on the YouTube channel. But thank you, Tommy, so much for coming back on to the show. And
anytime. Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
And Ron, thank you for, I know you feature on the show a lot, but thank you for being such a ardent supporter of the Phantom Menace and it being your favorite Star Wars movie.
Man, I got my saber and my shield, and I will fight for this movie until the death. So, no thanks necessary. I could have gone for another hour.
Thank you all for watching and listening along with us. We'll catch you next time.